Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&As, so let me go ahead and get my hat on and get to this first question. Alright. How should one program the sumo deadlift if hypertrophy is the main goal? For example, it's easy to bench press with 3x10 3 times a week to get a bigger chest, but recovery is much different from the deadlift. Thoughts? My question becomes, if hypertrophy is your main goal, why are you using a shorter range of motion deadlift that uses less muscles in the body that's used to lift more weight in powerlifting? I don't understand at all. If a person came to me and said, I want to get as much muscle mass as possible, how would you program the sumo deadlift? Well, I would start by switching the sumo deadlift to the conventional deadlift. The conventional deadlift is a dramatically superior mass builder. It's a dramatically superior mass builder. Well, maybe not dramatically, but noticeably. I wouldn't do the sumo at all, and like anything else, you train for hypertrophy with progressive overload. If you're stuck on the concept, I'm just going to do 3x10 on everything forever, you're really a noob lifter, because you're going to stall eventually doing that. You're going to need to use different periodization, different methods. I have entire videos discussing different periodization and progressive methods out there, progressive overload methods, and there's no one best one. But the first thing I would do to anybody whose goal is maximum hypertrophy is to select exercise variations that give you longer ranges of motion. For example, I would never have someone do the wide grip bench press. If their goal was hypertrophy, I would have them do closed grip bench presses. You're moving the bar through a longer range of motion. Same thing, chin-ups, pull-ups. I would have them do narrower grip stuff so that they move their body through a longer range of motion. Alright, I would use a chin-up over a pull-up because it adds extra bicep in it with the same amount of back work. So I would immediately make different exercise selection choices based upon better overall muscle building through the whole body. The conventional deadlift is superior to the sumo, and any method that has progressive workload, progressive overload, is going to put size upon you. Don't get caught up in just a 3x10 or a rep and set scheme, because I can assure you, once you get past the novice phase, you've been training hard more than a year, using the same rep and set scheme all the time is going to eventually lead to you stalling dramatically. So you shouldn't be thinking in those thoughts. You should be thinking in terms of how do you want to periodize it? What periodization protocol do you want to use? Alright, next question. What do you think about using a speed day for the powerlifting movements as one of the 3 days I train for powerlifting? I approach this day that I can groove my lifts without having too much muscular and neural fatigue that can transfer to my volume and intensity focused days due to the improvements of the lift's neural efficiency. I have no problem at all with speed days like that, particularly if you start getting more advanced, because speed work days don't fatigue your nervous system quite as much as real heavy days do. But as far as muscular fatigue, speed days are going to have muscle fatigue. They absolutely create metabolic fatigue. For some people, speed days can pretty much replace hypertrophy days. Just keep that in mind. You could actually, for a lot of people, they're interchangeable depending on what they're doing. Some strength athletes in place of hypertrophy days will use speed days because it can produce similar results sometimes. Not always, but oftentimes similar. Like I always noticed when I was powerlifting, when I messed with more dynamic effort stuff and treated it as accumulation training, it ended up turning into really decent hypertrophy phases also. So just understand what you're dealing with there. But as far as working it in and programming around it, I see no problem at all with anyone doing dynamic effort days or speed days as a power lifter. There's no problem at all. It's fantastic. It's a good way to gain overall technique, to gain more first reps, because you're doing high volumes of low reps. More first reps are going to translate into better technique on your maxes. You're training for speed strength, and you're usually getting enough metabolic fatigue to stimulate some pretty decent muscle growth. So go for it. Just like with any other type of training day, you just got to learn to program around it with what you're doing. Obviously, a video this short and for a general cookie cutter template, we can't program that in this video. But it sounds like you have some idea what you're doing, and you just want someone to reassure you that it's okay to work in speed days. Well, there are plenty of champions who work in speed days. Don't be afraid of it. Nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to try for a while. See how it works for you. in terms of your programming. And look at how other coaches out there are programming their speed work to get a real good idea of it. You can look at the West Side stuff, and even Alex Viada for raw lifters does some programming for some speed work and stuff. Look at some stuff Joe DeFranco's doing. There are templates out there already existing for you to build off of. All right, next question. Mr. Blaha, is it possible to have overdeveloped rear delts? I used to have muscular imbalance and impingement due to my rotator cuffs having overdeveloped shoulders from bench pressing heavy. I fixed that problem by hammering in a lot of rear delt exercises such as facepulls, external and internal rotation exercises. I've been doing 5 sets of 20 on each of these for about 3 months now. Right now I feel a little pain coming from my left shoulder. Could I fix that by working a little more front delt? No, brother. I've never seen a case where people had overdeveloped rear delts in comparison to their anterior deltoid unless they didn't do any pressing at all. That's the only way I could envision that being possible. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. If you've had impingements already, those are kind of permanent. Those aren't going away. So no matter how much work you do to rehab that after the fact, you will very possibly have a permanent impingement there. So the last thing you want to do at this point is to potentially make that worse and go do more front delt work and back off this rear delt work. At this point, all this stuff that you're building is strengthening rotators, strengthening your rear delts, and what you might be doing, you're only trying to prevent your impingements from getting any worse. You've already damaged yourself, and that's the problem we run into. That's one reason I really get upset with so much stuff that people teach out there, these bad methods, is because I can't fix you once you're broken. You know what? I can give people advice. I can help prevent you from getting injured. But the moment you guys follow too much of Mike Rashid or even Alpha Destiny's other stuff, once you're hurt, you're hurt. All right, a muscle pull, fine. But once you've impinged a shoulder joint, or you've crushed a glenoid in your shoulder joint, or you've herniated a disc in your back, I can't do anything for you. I can't help you after that. It's too late. So that's one reason I'm so hard on all of this stuff, this stupid stuff you see people do out there, because if I can catch people before they get hurt, I can keep them from getting hurt and help them move forward. But once you're hurt, you're hurt. Once you do one of those things, those are permanent. A surgeon might be able to fix you up, but no training is going to fix you up. You're going to need a surgery, and you're going to need a physical therapist. Well, these are both outside of my area of expertise. I can't fix either one of those problems. I can't do either of that for you. I can't perform the surgery, and I can't be your personal physical therapist. So I can keep you from getting hurt, but once you're hurt, you're hurt. So the pain you're feeling in your left shoulder is quite possibly because you already have a pre-existing injury. All you're trying to do is make it not get any worse. But you don't need to go back and do extra front delt work, probably not necessary. All right, next question. My boy is 8 and loves working out with me. I only let him do calisthenics right now, but he's always wanting to try the weights. What's a reasonable way knowing what he can and should start? You know what? I'm going to leave that to the individual parent. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule for when you need to put your kid in the gym. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on that at all. When you as a parent think they're ready and you feel confident in your ability to teach good technique, put your kid on the barbell. I don't know, for some kids that might be 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. It's going to depend on how well you think your child's maturity is, how well you think that they're going to be able to learn and follow instructions correctly. Because the main thing you're looking for is for them to lift light with good technique, to never ever use bad form. And that also means that I wouldn't go over about 50% max for children. Children who haven't hit puberty yet don't even consider more than 50% max. So if you think they could deadlift 90 pounds, 45 is just fine. You could even get some little small, light, almost weightless bumper plates, smaller bars for them to work with. Get you some 20-pound bars. Different things that you can work with to help them with this stuff. But the main thing is focusing on perfect technique all the time and lightweight. Let them learn all the motor unit learning of it, because they're not going to put on significant muscle mass. There's no point loading them up heavy. Just train them for good technique for years until they reach puberty, in which case then they could start putting on muscle mass a bit better. But until then, technique. Technique, technique, technique. Never let them do a bad rep. Never let them use bad form. And that's going to depend on your relationship as a parent with your child, their maturity, their ability to listen and follow instructions. And no other person can answer that for you. I would leave that up to the individual parent to determine themselves. All right, next question. Hey Jason, would the Romanian deadlift be a good substitute for the conventional deadlift? I'm moving into an apartment soon and I do not want to get complaints from the neighbors. I'm a novice, by the way. Brother, I'm of the opinion that you can never ever replace the conventional deadlift with the Romanian. It's just not the same movement. Now, that being said, could you still get very, very good development and strength from the Romanian deadlift? Sure. Sure. Now, some people would be like, I can't believe you said one exercise is essential. Yeah, I consider the deadlift to be an essential exercise. I don't care what your training goals are. Everyone should find a way to deadlift. In this case, though, I understand. You're in an apartment. You're training at home. You can't do the normal deadlift. That's fine. Do the Romanian deadlift then. It's certainly a good exercise. It can replicate many of the purposes of the conventional deadlift. So go for it. I see no problem with you using that in the condition that you're in and the environment you're in as an acceptable substitute for now, because you don't really have another choice. So I say go for it. And it'll still put size on you. It's not that I'm saying that you can't build the same muscle mass without the conventional. It's that I think the actual overall strength, full body strength that the conventional deadlift has the ability to develop, I don't think can be replicated by any other exercise, and that's my legitimate opinion. And I believe that full body strength should be important to you no matter what your overall training goals are, because it carries over into other things in life. I just consider deadlift strength to be somewhat essential for overall well-rounded fitness, survivability in a number of situations, everything else. So I don't think it can be fully replaced. But for overall just hypertrophy, if your only goal is muscle mass, there is no such thing as an essential exercise. You could always work around taking something out. In this case, you're getting an acceptable workaround for what you're capable of doing. And the Romanian deadlift can certainly build your spinal erectors, hamstrings, glutes, all of that stuff up. It's not a bad exercise for your goals. And like you said, you can't hit the floor with stuff because of the situation you're in, which is unfortunate, because I feel most of the best power building exercises are off the floor. But again, you've got other constraints in place that you have to work around, and that's okay. You want to train at home, you're in an apartment, do what you can get away with, you know. Probably Romanian deadlifts combined with some front squats and barbell rows will probably give you pretty much the same overall development in all those areas that you would get from a deadlift if that's your goal, so go for it. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.